Hello and welcome to Talk Lit Get Hit, a podcast where we read questionable books recommended to us by social media and talk shit about them.
We're Bridget, Erin and Laura, three friends who haven't mentally progressed since high school, where we bonded over a love of music and books, but mainly Twilight.
Brace yourself for a heady cocktail of somewhat highbrow and incredibly lowbrow ramblings about all the books the internet loves and our journey to figure out why.
Hello, welcome back to the show. We are super excited to share our second episode for 2023 with you. I feel like we really got the year off to a negative start with the love hypothesis. So for a change of pace, we're reading yet another book marketed as a rom-com enemies to lovers type read, and that is Beach Read by Emily Henry.
I was trying not to do it, but it just feels so natural.
As always, before we dive into our in-depth, detailed, highbrow literary discussion, dissection, and analysis of the text, let's have a little bit of a catch-up and see how everyone's month has been. How are you both?
Good. Being back at work sucks, but good.
Being back at work is rough. Yeah, I think we're all finally back at work. You were on an extended holiday, Bridget.
Yeah, I've had 3 days back.
Well, has anyone read anything cool that isn't the beach read since the start of the year? Because I haven't really read anything much.
Yeah, I haven't either. I am sticking pretty strong to my goal of only reading what we're reading for the pod.
Wow. We got to start picking some literary delights for you.
Oh, God. You think it takes me a long time to read these shit books? If we get harder books, it's going to take me so much longer.
Oh, no.
But we've been watching movies. I've set a goal for myself to try and watch a movie a week all year. And I'm on track.
That's a good goal. Are you like tracking them on Letterboxd or something?
No, not particularly.
I always forget kind of same with books, but I forget what I've watched as soon as I watch it, basically. Nah, I was just going to say I haven't really read anything, but I've had rotten luck with my loans because I borrowed a bunch of books from the library and like on audiobook apps, and I was reading Night Crawling by Layla Motley, which was I was really enjoying it. And then my hold lapsed on that. My reservation lapsed. And then I had to place a hold on it again. And now it's like, yeah, this book will be available again in 2 months' time.
Oh, no.
Which sucks. It's my own fault for not reading it fast enough, I guess. But maybe I'll just buy a copy. And I've also been reading True Biz by Sarah Novich. I don't know. Ooh. I haven't said that out loud. And it's great. But again, it's due back. Like, I gotta go fast. Why can't I go faster? But I did read I'm Glad My Mum Died. Yeah, I did like it. I found it like quite an unpleasant read at the same time because it was obviously like a really heavy subject matter. And yeah, it was quite grueling. Hey, I just felt really drained at the end, but not necessarily in the way. It's a thin line. I don't know why this didn't fulfill me in the same way that other books that make me cry did. Did you like it?
Yeah.
I think it was great. Say more.
Got a lot of thoughts on that.
I'm so glad that we had this chat.
Moving on.
Even after being roasted, still have nothing to say.
Next question. No further comment from Bridget.
Yeah, don't ask. You know what else was good? Hanging out and eating Korean food.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we had a little pod hang. That was fun.
And I think it was the first time we've caught up since the launch of our podcast in person. And possibly even, I might be wrong, but I think it's possibly the first time we've seen each other in person since we recorded our fateful 8-hour first attempt at a podcast.
Since we recorded the first episode.
Yeah.
Literally this time last year.
Oh, does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was delicious and a good time. So 5 stars all around. 5 out of 5 to be clear.
It was so much fun. Like Bridget and I were in Brisbane to see the Arctic Monkeys.
Oh, yeah.
We stayed in a hotel. We binge watched Laguna Beach. It was just We had so much room service. It was just the best few
That
days.
sounds so fun. Yeah, I saw you guys swimming in the pool, going
Yeah,
to
it
see a
was so
movie.
Yeah, we really didn't do anything other than that and watch
No.
Laguna Beach.
So much Laguna Beach. I'm ready to listen to the pod. I want to know all about what was real, what was not real. Have you ever seen Laguna Beach, Laura?
No.
Neither
Oh my
had I.
God.
Ooh.
Get amongst it. It's on Netflix. It's 2 seasons.
They're only like
It's
20
short.
minutes long.
And it's
Oh my
so
God,
easy
okay.
because once you start to get into it, the episode's over and you're like, fuck, and I need another one. Another
Yeah.
one.
Oh, I love that kind of TV. So,
It's so good.
Moorish.
Because The Hills is also on Netflix. So now that I've made Bridget watch Laguna Beach, now we have to watch The Hills.
Yeah. We also went and saw The Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, God.
Oh, how was it? I really do want to see it.
I mean, I don't want to
so
spoil it, but
good.
we cried the whole time.
Oh, that's my expectation, yeah.
And
Colin Farrell's
couldn't
just
stop thinking about it for the next few days.
same.
It's just one particular moment.
Oh, okay.
But after you've seen it, you will know what I'm talking about.
For me, there's this certain phrase that's said, and it's a typically good phrase, but it's said in a bad way in the movie. And now, anytime I hear someone use it, I'm like, oh, do they mean that positively or negatively?
Which one?
You know when they're like, oh, he's a kind man,
Oh, yeah.
and he's like, oh, I'm a kind man, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
There were parts where nothing sad was happening. Like,
you were still
explicitly
crying.
sad. And I would just start, like, I wasn't continuously crying. I would just stop and then something that wasn't even sad would happen.
I know.
And I'd just start crying again. Oh my God. It was so sad.
We were probably also in trauma because the cinema was absolutely freezing.
Oh, it was so cold.
And then
It was hot outside.
yeah,
So when we got in, I was like, thank God.
yeah.
But I was so cold, and I'd gone swimming in the morning. I had wet hair. It was still wet because I was so cold. At like 1:00,
Yeah.
shivering, and then I looked over at Erin at one point. She had all the pillows all over her, trying to like cover herself up.
It was
So cold.
we were fighting for our lives in that cinema.
Yeah, absolutely freezing.
But it's really good. Would recommend.
Yeah.
I think Colin Farrell will get an Oscar nomination for it, but I don't think he'll win. You guys don't care about the Oscars, do you? Maybe that's just a me
I
thing.
mean, I would if I watched more than one movie a year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't care about him too much. I feel like I'm always disappointed by the results. So I'm like in it for the red carpet looks and just to be like, oh, they were robbed.
That is the best part of it, though.
Okay, well, Beach Read by Emily Henry. What were your initial thoughts about this book? Had you heard of it? Were you excited to read it? Did you think it was going to be worth your time?
I was excited to read it, but I do this thing where I see it like something hyped up and then I just don't read it ever until, like this happens. Which it was the same thing with The Love Hypothesis. Everyone was talking about it. I was really excited to read it, and then I had a copy, but I just didn't want to start it. And this is the same thing because I've seen a lot of good things about it on TikTok. And I saw one girl, I remember maybe last year, who had a copy of every single edition that had ever been
Oh my
published or
God.
something. And she was like, this is the best book I've ever read. And I was thinking, okay, well, it must be good then.
I mean, I'd seen about it, much like The Love Hypothesis for me. I'd seen it. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was popular. So I went into this again with like zero preconceived notions. I just knew it was going to be a romance book.
I think I had a similar level of expectation for it because I actually listened to this as an audiobook, I think sometime at the start of last year. Yeah. I think I was just looking for something light and fun to read because at the time at work I was just doing really mind-numbing sort of data entry, and so anything that wasn't going to make me cry in the process but was like interesting enough to be engaging fit the bill. And yeah, I didn't have any particular opinions. I just had heard the name floating around and thought it might be worth it.
As always, if you haven't read Beach Read and don't want to have anything spoiled for you, your time to exit this episode is now. Also, if you're not a fan of swear words and air horn noises, Proceed with caution.
Ba, 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 ba.
I might have to go, guys. I'm not a fan.
How'd you go?
I'm gonna air horn myself senseless this episode.
While Bridget's away, the air horns will play.
If being an air horn is wrong, then I don't want to be right.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember if this has actually made it to every episode. But every episode, when I'm editing, I have to edit out or listen to about 15 air horns. Started with Erin, and then Laura's doing it too.
It's just so fun.
And last episode, I tried to say, guys, let's call it on the air horns, and ever since they've just amped up.
Yeah, that was your mistake.
Yeah, you really put your foot in it, mate.
A romance writer who no longer believes in love and a literary writer stuck in a rut engage in a summer-long challenge that may just upend everything they believe about happily ever afters.
Augustus Everett is an acclaimed author of literary fiction. January Andrews writes best-selling romance.
When she pens a happily ever after, he kills off his entire cast. They are polar opposites.
In fact, the only thing they have in common is that for the next 3 months, they're living in neighbouring beach houses, broke and bogged down with writer's block.
Until one hazy evening, one thing leads to another, and they strike a deal designed to force them out of their creative ruts.
Augustus will spend the summer writing something happy, and January will pen the next great American novel.
She'll take him on field trips worthy of any rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interview surviving members of his backwards death cult. Obviously.
Everyone will finish a book, and no one will fall in love. Really? I did think January Andrews was such a good name.
Yeah, I like it.
I was just about to say I hate the name January.
Oh.
I reckon January is such a glossy, like, it girl, like, popular American, like, frat party, blah, blah kind of name. I just thought it was perfect for the character. Anyway, I really just thought, oh, there's a girl.
Yeah, and like, so earlier this week, Laura asked for like who we pictured these characters as being, so she could make a TikTok. And I had no thoughts about any of them, but especially about January. I feel like there were no descriptors for her, except, as expected, she is the smallest person alive. There is a scene where her and Gus are talking about it, and he's like, oh, you're literally so small. You're the smallest ever. Shut up.
I did find it really hard to picture her as well. And I think I was a bit confused because when I was asking for who the celebrities you pictured the main characters as so I could make the TikTok, I was realizing I didn't really have anyone in my mind as well. But for January, I was picturing her as Megan Faye, I'm not sure, but the one that plays Daphne in The White Lotus. And I think she's in...
The bold type.
Yes, yeah. I haven't seen that, but I have heard people talking really positively about it. And she's just kind of currently in my mind as like breezy, bubbly, everything's rosy kind of it girl. And so that's who I pictured, because I just pictured
That's
like a
good.
blonde all-American.
I pictured brunette.
I think she is brunette.
Yeah. And then when I went back and I was looking at Pinterest for like Beach Read fan casts, everyone was brunette, and I was like, shit, I think I missed that clearly. Like, I need to ask you where you rate this book on like the pumpkin spice scale, because I feel like, yeah, January's a pumpkin spice girl, and therefore she's blonde.
I agree.
There's a Venn diagram somewhere, I'm sure.
It's a circle.
Having now actually read the book, what are your thoughts?
I have complicated thoughts about it, I think. I really liked, like, I don't know, maybe like the first half. I felt like I was going through it pretty fast. And then I felt like it lost momentum for a while there, and I was like dreading reading it. But the end was good. I cried in the end. When Bridget finished it, she put in the group chat like a sad emoji, and I was like, oh, what's sad about it? And then I read it, and I was like, oh.
Spoiler. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that you had mixed feelings about it as well, because I think I did too. I think it's probably a solid 3.5 star out of 5 in my mind, because I just kind of was like, this is fun. I don't actively hate this, But I just felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect between some of the plot and kind of I think that Emily Henry is really aware of the tropes and the cliches that she's writing within, but I still think that they weren't used to their full potential or something. I don't know what that disconnect is, but it just wasn't as, I don't know, sugary and fun and fulfilling as I wanted it to be. But I did like it, with all that said.
Yeah, I think I'm the same in, like, I didn't hate it with a burning passion like The Love Hypothesis. So the bar's kind of on the floor. Like,
What about you, Bridget?
I really liked it. I don't think it's a outstanding piece of art.
the best book you've ever read. How many copies would you buy?
Probably just the one. I really enjoyed it though. I probably read it in about 3 hours.
Oh my God.
I really liked it. I think I liked that it wasn't so like sugary sweet. They were a bit more realistic. Like it had more. There were actual problems that people had, unlike the Love Hypothesis. Like most of what's her name?
Olive's problems.
Olive,
Yeah.
like the tree. Olive. Most of her problems were like not real problems.
I agree. I think January's problems were handled really well. I found, I guess, as someone whose mum has been sick, like basically my whole life, I found her journey to be really authentic. There's a particular scene where she talks about at the funeral and she finds out the truth about her dad and she gets mad at her mum and her mum kind of clams up or whatever. And she's really mad because she feels like she's done everything she was supposed to do by like pushing down all her feelings and all her needs just to like keep her mum on the level. And I thought that was really authentic. I think that's what made me like the start of it so much because it felt really emotionally true. But I feel like it lost that at some point in the middle. I don't think I felt that so much about Gus's emotional journey.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I thought, I know I said I wanted it to be sugary and sweet, but I guess maybe what I'm trying to say is that my expectation for the book didn't align with what the book was. And I think if I knew that it was going to have a bit more substance, which I think it did, then I maybe would have liked it more. But I really liked the way January was written and like the feelings around her dad, who obviously cheated on her mum while she had cancer, and now she's gone to live in his quote-unquote sex dungeon, and like, yeah, her feelings of failure and just like the sense of being betrayed by life.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it because she does say like when she was a kid or I guess a teenager, and probably up until her dad died, her philosophy was when the world felt dark and scary, love could whisk you off to go dancing, laughter could take some of the pain away, beauty could punch holes in your fear. And she decided that her life would be full of all three, not just for my own benefit, but for mum's and for everyone else around me. And then she says there would be purpose, there would be beauty, there would be candlelight and Fleetwood Mac playing softly in the background. She's so nice.
I know, I'm crying a little bit. I really liked that. I highlighted it too.
Yeah. And it's just obviously that's just not always the way life goes. As she said, one gaping pothole appeared, the whole thing unraveled. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the way it was like expectation versus reality in this book, both for her like romanticizing her life, but also when she realizes that she's been trying to romanticize like Gus this whole time. She's been like thinking of him as a concept and also making herself a concept. Her relationship with Jacques is also conceptual. She's with him because they met at the same age her parents met. She likes that her mum's met him. Like if she dies, then she wants to marry him. And then basically all those concepts fall apart and she's forced to face the reality of the world.
And I think as well, something I like is in movies and books and things, and I guess in real life, but is like when people have the realization that their parents are like humans too,
Yeah,
and they have their own lives. They don't they're not just your parents. I think she realized that, her seemingly perfect father had flaws as well, and like also wanted to have a happy life. I don't know if what he did was actually wrong. Well, at the start it wasn't wrong because they had separated, and they obviously weren't happy because they separated.
Well, I think
It just continued on. That's the sad,
I kind of think, at least where I got to by the end of it, it didn't necessarily matter if it was right or wrong. It was just something that he needed to do. And like the way he treated Sonia wasn't great. The way he treated January's mum wasn't great. But at the end of the day, it's just something he did.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot to be done about it at the end of the day.
And it did annoy me that she didn't read his letter. But I understand why.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be reading that.
I understand why, but I feel like if she had read it at the start of the book, then, or the end of the book wouldn't happen. But if she had read it,
exist.
she wouldn't have spent all of that time anguishing about, like, who was my father as a person? Like, I thought I knew him and I didn't. But even just like a spite read, she might have gotten answers to some of those questions that she spent a year thinking about.
I will say I really enjoyed the full circle moment when she's talking with Sonia, or like Sonia's talking at her, and she realizes that where she's at with Gus is very much where Sonia was at with her dad. I thought that was a really good way of making January have to face the way she was treating Sonia and the way she was interpreting her dad's behavior. Like, it's not always as black and white as people think it is. And it doesn't make it right, but the context is still important. I really liked the way that kind of brought context to January's conflict as well within herself.
I think it is a bit of a pattern in Emily Henry books, and I guess just in this genre in particular, but where the female character just like misses all of the clues.
Oh, I hate it so much.
And every time something doesn't happen, she forgets literally everything that's happened. Like every bit of affection or every like nice thing that the love interest has said to her.
Yeah.
And then they just fly off the handle.
Yeah.
They
He
think,
hates
oh
me.
my God, he hasn't talked to me for a morning for one morning. He must hate me. He must have gone. He must have he must be hooking up with some hot bitch. Like every character is the same. They're all so like insecure, and none of them are even, and the men in the books do always, I'm not trying to apologize for men, but
Oh, here we go.
but the men in the books are pretty clear. Especially Adam. Adam was so clear with what he
We're on
wanted.
the love hypothesis.
Yeah. Because they're sort of the same. They have the same flaws.
Yes.
Adam was so clear that he wanted Olive.
Yeah.
And Gus was pretty clear he wanted January. All of that just leaves her mind.
Yeah.
And she thinks, oh, they're back together.
Yeah.
He has things he needs to sort out. He has been so clear that he likes you, he wants you, he's wanted you for a long time.
Yeah.
How can you just forget all of this? It's so frustrating.
I know. And I think that's why I was losing interest, because she was just so boring. There was no progression for her until like right at the very end, I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, I made some notes about that as well. Like, that, because I have recently read Book Lovers as well. And I guess Book Lovers came out after this one. And I haven't read any other Emily Henry books, but this one is very much like a rinse and repeat of Book Lovers, where there's always going to be that same conflict of like emotionally unavailable guy. Maybe, is he? Maybe, yes, no. No, he loved her all along. And yet what? Secret wife and trauma. And it's just like, in a rom-com, you have to see the guy obviously sort of being smitten with the girl and the girl missing the point, so you can generate that tension of like, he's right behind you. Like,
Yeah.
It sounds like a horror movie.
but I feel like sometimes I mean, kind of the same as what you said about the love hypothesis, Bridget, where like every plot point that happened in this book, basically, like I could have called it. And I don't think that is like a negative thing about this book, because I still think it was fun and it had like more substance than I was expecting it to. But I do feel really set up that like obviously there's going to be some sort of like setup where she thinks she's been betrayed and he's like, no, my dad didn't love me. And then she's like, oh my God, like, let's fix each other. And, but you know, it's a fun journey.
It is. I would say I didn't feel it was easy to predict how they would get to their happy ending.
That's true. I did like the ending, I think.
But I want to talk about Gus. What are our takes on Gus? Do we like him? Do we not like him?
I think I like him overall, but I was a bit iffy about him because I was just like, I just thought he was a bit emotionally unavailable when I was reading through it. But I don't know what to say because at the same time I was still rooting for them. I'm going to need to get back to you on that because I don't have much to say at the moment.
Well, it's hard not to root for them. There are like no other characters in this book for most of it. Like you're kind of forced to root for them.
I liked Gus. And she's all hung up about her writing romance. That's in your head.
Yeah, it's
no one's
insecurity.
ever said that. Well, he's never said that to you. He read all her books.
Yeah,
and
that
she
was
was
when you admitted that. I really liked that.
I really like that too. Can we talk about that for a second? Because I thought that was like the hottest scene in the whole book. When they're like, where are they? At the petrol station? Hang on, I think I highlighted it.
Yes, and it's up against the door. I did like that.
Yes, I cracked up so hard at myself for enjoying that so much. Hang on, I think I have it.
I feel like the tension was really high in that scene. That was a good scene.
Yeah. I will say out of all the books we've read, I think the like sex scenes or like steamy moments, whatever you want to call them, were the best out of any that we've read so far. I mean, it's not like a tall order to be better than The Love Hypothesis and even ACOTAR. Like, no one was roaring in this one.
I was really waiting for someone's boob to fit in someone's mouth. I'm sad it didn't happen again.
I liked it too because they were still being funny. Like, it seemed a bit more realistic.
It was human.
Like when they were in the drive-through or the drive-in movie thing. I thought that was so funny.
It was good.
But the whole time I was like, oh my God, guys, there's probably like kids around. I was really stressed for them.
Same. This is incredibly inappropriate.
This is not the place.
Gus leaned in toward me and dropped his mouth beside my ear conspiratorially, his hot breath pulling goosebumps on the side of my neck. His eyes flashed sideways across my face and his other hand touched my hips so lightly it could have been a breeze. The heat in my hips spread toward my center, curling around my thighs like kudzu. Kudzu? Shit, if only I knew what that word was or what that meant. Anyway, she's pressed up against the wall. I lied, he whispered against my ear. I have read your books. Yeah. His hands tightened on my waist and he spun me away from the car, opened the door and got in, leaving me gasping at the sudden cold of the parking lot.
It was good. Some of the descriptors in this were insane, though. There was one I took a picture of that was just nonsense. It's when they are about to get hot and heavy in the basement. He's just, like, pushed her against the tool rack. She's like, he's flattened me into the tool rack as his hands rose to my jaw, angling my mouth up to his as he kissed me again, even deeper, like we were desperate to plumb the depths of each other. Gross. Why are you plumbing each other? It's so gross.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like
plumbing.
fish.
That is so
It's
weird.
gross.
I missed that.
It's such a bad descriptor.
I will say I was a bit sick of reading about his crooked smile and his quirked up corners of his mouth and stuff. I know exactly what she means, and actually it is pretty hot expression, but that descriptor always tilts me the wrong way.
Every time I read that, I just picture Elvis.
Oh, well, that's a nice visual. I picture like a cartoon of the Joker or something.
God, I
I
think
just picture
Elvis.
that like emoji with the slash. But the leaning, why was it such a character point that he was leaning all the time?
I like a good lean.
I don't understand. Like, does he have scoliosis? Does he have problems standing up? I don't get it.
It's his bad boy devil may care attitude.
I think it might be more like he did not have the love that he needed when he was growing up.
Ooh,
so he doesn't want to take up like, especially coming from like an abusive household, he probably doesn't want to draw attention to himself. He wants to like stay back in the corner, like in the shadows. You know, he doesn't want to like
He
bring
just wanna
attention to
take
himself.
up space.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
That's what I read it as.
That's a very kind reading of it.
And he's not confident enough to like stand tall and
Ooh,
just being put down. And then the blow from his wife as well. that would just knock you down a few more pegs.
I felt like I was really missing out. Like, I know we got glimpses of it, but the scene at the college party where they were getting hot and heavy, I was like, I just want to read that scene though. I actually found throughout this, I was also thinking, I wish that there was a book that was them in college as well. Or maybe I wish this book was just set in college. Although, I like the 29-year-old lost in life thing because that resonates as well.
Yeah. Big move.
Well, okay, sticking with college then, we have to talk about January's bestie, Shadi.
At the start, I was thinking, oh, no, I really don't like this girl. But I liked her in the end.
Yeah.
It was just when I read the bit about how when she drives and when she does a left turn, she screams.
You can't talk, you do that. Through traffic lights.
Just for fun. I don't do it because I'm actually scared. But she shouldn't be driving if she is legitimately scared.
Yeah.
I just do it because it's funny.
It is fun.
Do it for the lol. That's true, though.
Fun.
Didn't think about that.
Ah.
But I think she actually had some sensible advice in the end.
Yeah.
Like, she was really helpful to January.
Yeah, it was a really good friendship.
She was a good friend, but I thought she was annoying. I think I just didn't really. I feel like sometimes I really can't get behind friendships in books. I don't know how to explain this. I find it really hard to be drawn into a larger than life, like she's my person, she's my other half kind of like I drop everything for her friendship in a book when on paper that friendship is just like an exchanging of inside jokes kind of thing, and I feel excluded. I think I feel excluded from their friendship. I don't know. I'm like, I don't care about your like secret code names and like sexy evil Gus and just the patter of your chat. I don't know. I think I find it exhausting. Probably says something about me, but
I was just going to say that I liked when she made the realization about Jacques, that he wasn't her favorite person and she was. I really liked that. And when it was their anniversary or birthday or something, and she realized she didn't actually want to spend it with him. She just wanted to hang out with her friend. I thought it was really nice.
Yeah.
it's what Olive thought Arn was.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. This is a much better, like, ride or die friendship than we were meant to believe Olive and Arn was.
And they communicated.
Yeah.
So much, so healthily.
So much so that, like, when Shadi bailed on 4th of July, like, they actually talked it through and she understood why she was doing it. And January was like, yeah, this sucks for me, but it's not necessarily about me. And I have a network that can look after me, and she should be able to, like, pursue what she wants to pursue, and it's not a huge drama. Like, imagine if that happened with Olive and Arn. It would be a train wreck.
Yeah.
It would be such a train wreck. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I guess I like their friendship. I just don't like the way, like the kind of dialogue that's written for them. I find it really, like I was just picturing eavesdropping on their conversation on a bus or something. And I would be like, oh, shut the fuck up. Shut up about Saxy. Little Midnight Saxophone Man. No, the haunted hat or whatever. I would just be like, oh my God, American accents as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why I took it to the bus, but that's where I find myself getting annoyed. Overall, though, I think the banter in this was pretty top tier.
Yeah.
And I really liked reading the exchanges. Like there was one that really made me crack up. I think it was when Gus was proposing the plan, like that they should switch genres and write their novels. And he says, oh, I have an idea. And then she says something like, oh my God, a 7th Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It's so crazy. It just might work.
I thought that was really funny.
That is great. Yeah.
January was funny. And I really like this because, like, compare this banter to, like, the banter, and I say that in inverted commas, that was in, like, ACOTAR. When you're like, has this author even met a man before? And then this one, like, it's flowing naturally. It's a back and forth. It's so much more enjoyable.
When you said about Pirates of the Caribbean, I remembered another funny thing that they kept talking about. A few years ago, I think somebody gave me some books to read, and I read them, and they were Jack Reacher books. I became quite obsessed with Jack Reacher. I read a lot of Jack Reacher books, and Jack Reacher is like, I think he's like ex-military. He sort of like a vigilante. He travels around, always seems to uncover like something dodgy happening in the deep south of America and stuff, and like nearly dies every book, and whatever, it always
He's a national
makes it out.
hero.
I really like Jack Reacher books, so funny, and I talk about them with my friend Tim. So every time there was a Jack Reacher reference, I'd send him a photo. The first one was, "Believe whatever you want, January Andrews." He said Jack Reacher risks his life every day to guarantee you that freedom, and it's just, I just thought it was so funny. And then another one, she's saying, "That's your right as an American citizen." And he goes, "Thanks be to Jack Reacher." But then it like took a weird turn because they were just in normal conversations. But then
It's in the sex scene, isn't it?
after they leave the sex dungeon, they're running up the stairs.
He grabs her ass.
Yeah, and he says, "God, thank you for this day, Lord." Also Jack Reacher. It's just so funny.
That's so funny. I wish I'd understood the context of that, because that is genuinely hilarious.
I said, "This lady is obsessed. Oh my God," in a literal sex scene. Why are they so obsessed with Jack Reacher?
He's the third.
And I said, "Surely there won't be a fourth reference." And Tim said, "The trend suggests otherwise."
I wish there was. I had a big cry at all the letters. I thought the letters were so sad.
One every year.
Yeah, and the
that was
way he
lovely.
was like cataloging her progress and like where he was at. And then there's that one where he's like, "I'm going to be honest, I'm not in a great space, and here's all the mistakes I'm making." Like, oh, I thought it was so sad. And it was such good context into, obviously at that point we knew Sonia's side of the story, that for whatever reason it kind of wasn't technically cheating, but kind of was. So we understood how it mirrored January's story, but seeing Walt's story and him like going through those emotions in real time, it was just so sad. And it made him so much more human for a character who was never like alive in the book. It was hard after that to be like, oh, he's such an asshole for cheating on his wife with cancer. Like, that's a hard position to be in. He was obviously struggling that whole time. I really liked the letters. Made me really sad.
Actually, the thing that made me really cry, and I might cry reading it.
Oh, no.
I always felt grateful Dad had gotten his sleep. I hope the night before he and Mum had watched something on TV that made him laugh so hard he had to take off his glasses to get the tears out of his eyes. Maybe something with a boat in it. I hoped he'd had a few too many of Mum's infamous martinis to feel any worry when he crawled into bed, apart from that he might not feel so hot in the morning. And then when she told her Mum that, she'd cried and held me close. It was something like that, she promised. So much of our lives was something like that.
Oh, it was
Just
so
so
sad. God.
I think she did such a good job of painting like the complexity and warmth and depth of a family. Like, I find often when I'm reading books where there's a dead parent, I'm kind of, I don't mind that much, but I felt like, really invested in their family dynamic, and like I really felt betrayed by the dad and like sad for the mum, and I then just watching the kind of complexity of that unfold throughout the letters was so good. But I thought even like the opening sequence where she's talking about her family before she says her life's manifesto about love curing everything, I thought that painted such a sunshiny romantic picture of her family as well.
Yeah, I think Emily Henry does a really good job of like drawing you into the story. It's quite like vivid.
I was thinking like obviously January was in quite a desperate position as well, like needing to write the novel in order to get money, in order to survive. And it was kind of addressed like how she couldn't rent anywhere because she couldn't find like an ideal living situation. But I kind of was like, why is she putting herself through this? Like she could just sell the house and have money, but I guess she needed somewhere to write her novel. But I was just thinking, like, if I found out that my dad had a secret second life and he'd been cheating on mum and then I got the keys to that house, I don't know if I could bring myself to go there and sleep in those beds and be in that space. But she was in a desperate position, I think.
Yeah. But I think
and also it needed to happen for the book.
Yeah, but I think also it's one of those things, it's like the last thing she has of him at that point. So even though emotionally she doesn't want to be there because it's his second house, I think part of her does want to be there because that's still his house.
And offering, like some kind of closure as well, maybe.
Yeah, and she actually talks about it near the end when she's finished reading the letters and she realizes that it's one of the last pieces of him that she's got. She talks about how she realizes that she'd forgotten while living in the house that whole house was the last thing he's touched, and like it was her connection to him.
Also, sounded like a bit of a vibe too. Like,
I know.
Beach house.
The hand-painted tiles. I really loved that bit, and I think I took a picture of it, where she talks about how she really loved the tiles, and after she sold the house, she was sad and she missed them, but she liked to imagine that this big family moved in there and that they really value the tiles in the same way she did. I just thought it was so cute. It was so nice.
I also really struggled to picture what the beach house, quote unquote, would look like. And I was really confused by her constantly being able to see directly into Gus's house.
Yes, at like every angle.
I was confused.
I did like that because it gave us the second Taylor Swift reference in a book.
I know, that's in my notes.
Yeah.
I was like so excited for you.
But yeah, she said, but so far, this was the third worst day of my life. And that January was probably buried wherever they put the old Taylor Swift.
My heart was so happy for you when I read that.
And then the other one.
I don't even remember that bit.
Oh, I remember it.
I remember when she compares the note stuff to the video.
That Taylor Swift video. Put some respect on her name. You belong with me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, not that video. Don't act like you don't know.
You've referenced Reputation. Look what you made me do, but you don't know You Belong with Me. Like, what the hell? Okay,
What
January.
is the truth?
I felt sad for Sonia.
That whole scene on the porch was so sad.
Yeah, pretty courageous thing for her to go to the funeral to start with, I guess, and then keep trying.
Yeah, and there's that bit where she's like, look, even though he had gone back to his wife, I still loved him, and then he started coming back, and I still loved him, but I knew that even if his wife died, he wouldn't love me properly, and I wouldn't really love him properly, and like, they both knew that it was always doomed, but they were still coming back together the whole time. Like, it was obviously good, but it was toxic. It was just so messy. I felt so bad for her. And then she's like, I don't even have a right to be heartbroken about this. And yet I still am. Like, things are good for me now. I have a good partner now, but it still hurts so much. Like, poor Sonia.
Also, he described her as stringy and serene.
What's with that? That is... If anyone described me as stringy in the bin,
I hope she never read those letters.
Oh my god! But like,
stringy.
God,
I'm gonna look up the definition actually.
In the bedroom, like, oh, Sonia, you're so stringy.
Yeah, I love your stringy little legs. Yeah, I do have like a lot of negative associations with people named Sonia. I feel like they're always really unpleasant. So I thought initially I was like, yeah, this bitch Sonia, like cheating little witch. But again, testament, what like power to Emily Henry, because yeah, I didn't expect to have that turned around. Actually, one thing I will say though that I kind of wish it was kept throughout was at the start of the book where she's kind of like narrating the events of her life. It made me think of Cameron Diaz's character in The Holiday, which is probably why I liked it, because I like that movie. But there's that bit where she's like pulling up to the beach house She says, January Andrews stared out the car window at the angry lake beating up at the dusky shore. She tried to convince herself that coming here hadn't been a mistake. And I kind of wished, well, I don't know. I liked it. Could have been distracting, but
I like that too.
I did like Pete's character though, and I was picturing like every kind of nurturing, cozy side character all in one, like Chessie from The Parent Trap or Suki from Gilmore Girls. Just like all of that energy into one character. I always love that. I love the character that is just there to provide guidance and leak secrets and give good advice.
One of my favorite bits with Pete is when it's obviously just a plot drop and they go in and have like wine with them and they're like, oh, it's our anniversary. And January's like, oh, my birthday is January 13. And they only tell you that so that you can be like, oh, obviously the safe's code is her birthday, January 13.
That would be the first thing I tried.
Yeah. I know, she's so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, how many times does he have to sing the song and everything? Like, he's obsessed with you.
I loved all the writing stuff. Like I love writers writing about writers.
Yes.
I think it's so funny. And also as someone who, well, I don't really write anything ever, but I do like it when I do. But I have absolutely no understanding of the like actual publishing industry and like having an editor and how that stuff works because I've never made it that far. So I feel like when a writer writes a writer, it's like, woo, fun little free business insight that I didn't have to pay for, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, and it was so good. I really liked when she reflected on the end of the circus story that she wrote. And she talked about how she'd like wrapped up all their stories and how you could see that the journey she'd gone on had reflected in their journeys.
There was one bit that I really liked where she was talking to Gus about basically she like gave him a real dressing down about his opinions of rom-coms or romance novels. Let me try and find it because I highlighted it.
Yeah, the bit when she's saying like, if I wasn't a woman, it would just be fiction.
Yeah,
Is it that?
Yeah, I liked that.
So she says, yeah, well, you're not the only one who doesn't understand it. I said, I know how to tell a story, Gus, and I know how to string a sentence together. If you swapped out all of my Jessicas for Johns, do you know what you'd get? Fiction. Just fiction. Ready and willing to be read by anyone. But somehow, by being a woman who writes about women, I've eliminated half the Earth's population from my potential readers. And you know what? I don't feel ashamed of that. I feel pissed that people like you will assume my books couldn't possibly be worth your time, while meanwhile, you could shout on live TV and the New York Times would praise your bold display of humanity.
Iconic.
Yeah. Mic drop. I liked that. Another thing about the writing as well, I don't know if I've mentioned it on the pod before, but sometimes something that I find really cringy in books is when there's a writer is penning like a song or a section of a novel or some poetry, and it's meant to be good, but it always just feels really either like lame or contrived to me. But I found like the sections of her book that she was writing really good as well. Yeah. Like one I highlighted when she first started sort of I think that was when she was first getting pen to paper and was like understanding what the book might be about. And she's talking about her dad. And then there's that section that says, now she worried those similarities betrayed the terrible wrongness that lived in her. Maybe she, like her father, was incapable of the love she'd spent her life chasing. I thought that was really beautiful.
Laura, why did you write Dave, Death Cult, Zaddy?
Like, I don't know. I thought the death cult stuff was like a little out of pocket.
I thought the cult stuff was so distracting to the story.
Zaddy, because it's distracting just like the way that I found the death cult stuff distracting.
I think that should be his name.
So they go to talk to the death cult Zaddy. I see what they were trying to do, what Emily Henry, I guess, was trying to do with the death cult stuff. And, like, I know Gus was all interested in investigating, like, why people stay trapped in these bad situations that they're trapped in or have found themselves in. But the fact that it was something as extreme as a death cult that, like, ends in, like, nothing but tragedy and flames, yeah, I found it, like, a bit out of place, I think.
Yeah.
Although I love cult stuff.
Yeah, like it was interesting stuff. I just felt like it was so distracting to the story. And And every time we got back onto the cult stuff, I was like, oh my God, I forgot we were doing that.
So Emily Henry, I just had a quick look. There's not really much about her on the internet. She lives and writes in Cincinnati and Kentucky's northern Ohio River region. She's
not on Lake Michigan.
No.
So what is the truth, Emily Henry?
She's a full-time writer and proofreader.
I would love to be a proofreader.
Debut young adult novel was published in 2016, and then she wrote several young adult novels, and then Beach Read was published in 2020. I've read all of her adult books. So there's Beach Read. People We Meet on Vacation was released in 2021, and Book Lovers was in 2022, and I have enjoyed all of them.
Wow, she's really churning them out to have a book a year.
And there's another one in April.
Wow.
Called Happy Place.
Oh my God, so we can read it like when it comes out, when it drops. Penguin Australia, feel free to send us some advanced readers copies on that.
Yeah, shout out to Penguin, please.
Yeah, I know, Laura, you've read Book Lovers and you really enjoyed it.
I loved Book Lovers.
Yeah, it was great.
So I think I was quite harsh, like, as I find that I often am. I don't know why I feel like I have to come into these chats and bully the author, because I think I was quite harsh when I started talking about this, and I said something about how I don't think that Emily Henry makes the most of the tropes of this book. I do feel like I stand by that, even though I do feel mean, like a bully for saying it. I mean, I don't know how I could do a better job, but I still didn't feel fulfilled, or like maybe I didn't feel like, because I want to reference Book Lovers, where I felt like from the start of the book, bang, 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 it was like, these are the cliches that people can expect in a book like this, but they're not going to happen in this book. And then like when they play out, it's so satisfying. And I feel like it was really charming and really self-aware. But I feel like in this one, it doesn't follow that same sort of journey.
I think this is much like The Love Hypothesis, where it's called enemies to lovers. But once again, they're not enemies. They're just strangers.
This is a bit more like the last book I read for my 100 books in 2022 was Love on the Brain, which is Ali Hazelwood's follow-up, I guess, to The Love Hypothesis, which is just the same story, but worse.
Slammed.
In my opinion. And that's coming from someone who enjoyed The Love Hypothesis. I did not enjoy Love on the Brain. But it's the same thing. They knew each other once. She thought they had this rivalry, this like, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I liked you. I was nice to you. I thought you were cool. But she's just been like harboring this like obsessive resentment ever since. So it's not really enemies to lovers. It's, I don't know, different perceptions.
Well, it's like expectation versus reality, which is like what Beach Read is talking about for most of it anyway. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense for this one that the expectation and the reality are quite different.
Yeah.
But like in Beach Read especially, she talks about how like if she was a man, she would just be writing fiction, blah, blah, blah. It's like breaking down the gender issues in writing, which I get. But then you go and you write this female character who is like deeply insecure, doesn't really go after what she wants, and just makes all these really dumb decisions. I find it really like contradictory to what you're trying to tell us. It's, I don't know. It makes me disinterested or less interested in January when she behaves like that, but is still like on that feminism kick.
Yeah.
Obviously, I understand what she's saying. Like, if it's just fiction, and I don't know, maybe it's a bigger thing in America, but in Australia, I don't really feel like we have like women's fiction and fiction. If you go into a bookstore, there's just fiction. There might be like sometimes there might be like chick lit or something, which I think is probably a nod to the beach read title, because, you know, like in a magazine, they'd be like, oh my God, this is a great beach read or something, chick lit. But also, I don't think there's anything wrong with writing books marketed or targeted towards women, because I know one man who reads.
I was like, only one?
Total.
Okay, a few more. They like to, the ones I know anyway, but they like to read books about fish, about I don't know, like self-help or like not self-help, but just like things that I would think are really boring. Yeah. Fish and stuff. Yeah. But it's just different things, and I think it's fine to like different things.
Yeah. Well, see, I actually agree, because I think a lot of January's thoughts on like her own genre come from her own like biases and her own insecurity about writing it. But I also think there is and always has been this like a negative perception of fiction written for women. Like, think about how people treat Mills and Boon books. Like, people have always made fun of people for reading those. And why? Like, they're just romance books. That, like, just because your nan reads them doesn't mean we're making fun of them.
And, you know, modern day example, Colleen Hoover.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know the statistic, but I'd say 99% of her readers are women. And look at how she's doing on the charts. Like, she has made so much money off marketing towards women. So I think instead of thinking like, I write books for everybody, say, I write books for women, and that's great.
Yeah, and I crush it.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm great at it. I don't have to write a book for a man, and a man might read it and enjoy it. Like, different people like different things, but women's fiction, and I'm the best at it.
Yeah.
So
that would have been an awesome end to January's character arc.
Like, he can go and write his boring books like the Great American Novel or whatever, but people like these books.
Yeah.
Go where the money's going and go where the...
Well, go where the story's going.
Exactly.
If you want to write that story, like, you write that story.
Yeah.
No, something I liked as well was how throughout the book it's repeatedly said as well, like a chip on her shoulder it is that the books she writes are perceived as fluffy and unsubstantial. And I think that was my personal expectation, as I have said, heading into this book, was that it would just be like a light-hearted, fluffy read. But then coming out of it, it was substantial and it did make me cry and it was like a nice book. And I actually think my opinion has shifted throughout the course of this conversation. And once I realized I don't have to bully everyone again, that was really smart. I don't know how intentional it was, but I think it was like a beautifully crafted clap back to that kind of idea.
Do you guys also have favorite quotes, or... I know Bridget's read a few out.
Yeah, I think probably some of my favourite quotes have already been read out.
I think my favourite quote, other than the Taylor Swift and Jack Reacher comments, which is funny saying that sentence out loud. I don't know if many times before somebody would be discussing both Taylor Swift and Jack Reacher in a single sentence. But other than those quotes, I actually think my favourite quote was the one that made me cry. About the dad. That's just so beautiful. And really, that's all like anyone can ask for. Like a happy life ending, you know, without pain, not drawn out, after having like a lovely evening with the person you love the most or one of the people you love the most.
Yeah. So
lovely.
Yeah, it's such a lovely sentiment.
Yeah.
And that ties in, I think, to my favorite piece of writing in this. It's when she's talking about how she's wrapped up the book, and she says Eleanor's father had stolen her mother's wedding ring and sold it to give his other family the money they needed. Eleanor's mother still had no idea that other family existed, and she believed she had only misplaced the ring, that perhaps when they unpacked in their next town it would fall out of a pocket or a fold of towels. In her heart, the bit of colourful yarn her husband had tied around her finger more than replaced it. Love, after all, was often made not of shiny things, but practical ones that grew old and rusted only to be repaired and polished, things that got lost and had to be replaced on a regular basis.
That is a lovely quote. Yeah. I was cracking up earlier at myself, though, when just a quick change of pace there. But
yeah, that was cute.
Back to me.
I was really laughing.
Back to me. Enough about that. So I was laughing though I think it's when they're at the carnival, or I don't know, they're out on one of their montage outings and they see Oh, they see like a lady with a pram, or no, a lady who's pregnant. And Gus is like, oh, she joins the cult, and January is like, no, she doesn't. And then he goes, yeah, she does, and the baby dies. It's so sad, or whatever. And I was like, yeah, let me find it. Hang on.
It's really funny.
Gus pointed at a pregnant girl with a barbed wire tattoo. She joins the cult. She does not. I disagreed. She does. She loses the baby. It's awful. The only thing that starts to bring her back to life is this rising YouTube star she follows. She finds out about New Eden from him and then goes for a week-long seminar and never leaves. I like that because I was just, I don't know. I thought that's darkly funny. Yeah.
I really liked how he ended his story in the end with, like, not a happy ending as January would expect it, but a happy ending for his characters in that they, like, died together, not really knowing anything else. Like, I thought that was a really nice reflection of the journey he went on as well. That, like, happy endings are possible, and they may not look like other people's happy endings, but they're still happy for you or them.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a good segue. Whose book would you prefer to read? January's or Gus's?
I think probably January's. I always love like a bittersweet ending. And I think that whole like thing where she ends up with someone other than the person she loves.
It hurts.
Yeah, it hurts my heart in the good way.
Yeah. I think so too. I also think it had like a bit more depth to it than what it sounded like Gus's story was. So I would read January's as well.
I think I would read both, but enjoy January's a bit more. I wasn't too interested in the traveling carnival thing, but at the same time I wasn't really interested in the meteor or whatever thing happened. It was a bit weird.
Yeah, I thought it was wanky that the plot for his story was there was this cult and the leader of the cult said a meteor was coming, and when they got out of the cult, they were like, oh my God, the meteor that the leader said was coming.
I know.
Shut up.
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'd read them both because I do like cults. Like reading about cults.
I'm a huge fan
is
of
this a cry
cults.
for help?
I was just going to say I did kind of roll my eyes a bit when she started to flesh out the characters of her book, and she was like, oh, she's a tightrope walker with a port wine like birthmark in the shape of a butterfly or whatever it was. I was like, oh, probably could have left it as it was, I reckon.
Before we wrap up for today's episode, we need to know the listeners are, I don't know what the word is.
They're dying to know.
You're dying to know. Do we rate this lit or shit? Okay, Erin, go.
I say lit. What about you, Laura?
Yeah, I say lit as well.
I also say lit.
Wow.
It's unanimous.
We haven't had a lit for a while.
Too long between triple lits. That's what I always say. Wow, okay. That really uplifts me because after the love hypothesis, I was a little bit scared that it was going to be a downhill year for us. Okay, thank you so much for listening. If you agree, disagree, want to burn down our houses or grovel at our feet, be sure to let us know. A little hint for our next episode. There is a TV show coming out soon and it rhymes with schmazy, schmones and the schmicks. If you're still struggling to decipher the clues, here's another one for you. The next book we will be perusing for a bruising is Daisy Jones and the Six, written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. There's plenty of time to pick up a copy if you want to read along, and we will see you in a month for the release of our new episode. In the meantime, if you want to be on the same page as us, you can follow us at talklit.gethit on Instagram and TikTok.